Hi there. Today's recording it's going to be a retry from the from yesterday's recording, and what we're going to be talking about today is part 13 of the Metroidvania series. So the article has been recently released, and I'm gonna be doing the content creation stream today, and then we'll be getting the video from this, and then we'll be cutting it up and using it for part 13 of the Metroidvania series. So what's going to happen is usually our stream is going to, have chat and everything. But for today, let me just leave a message on the chat. And then we can get this started. Alright, so part 13 of the Metroidvania series, the article has just been released. And it's going to be about redesigning the health and mana UI for our project. And there are a couple of reasons why such a redesign has been planned. Number one is because when we were making our improvements to UI in the previous part of the series, you will notice that the AI, the UI gets cut off at certain screen sizes. And then at certain screen sizes, it doesn't look very good as well, let me just let it run so that you can see the whole thing. So if I move the UI around, you will see the mana works fine, but the health gets cut off at certain screen sizes. So what I'm gonna do in this in part 13, what we can do is to redesign the health and the mana UI so that this responsive problem doesn't exist anymore. And as part of that, we are also gonna add a couple of new features to the UI. So one thing you will notice that we don't have currently in our mechanics and our UI, right, is for health. There is no way to have excess health, but in Hollow Knight you are able to get blue health, right, extra blue health. So we'll take this opportunity to add that functionality as well. And in the next part of the series, we'll be adding a pickup that will give you blue health as well. So the blue health stuff that we built for this part will be used in the next part. And the other thing is that for the mana, right, it also works in a very odd manner because the player doesn't manage the extra mana that the character has. So if you get extra mana, the extra mana is actually handled by this script, and it's called the mana ops. And over here we have the mana ops controller, and then just all the mana information is stored here. So the player has the player controller script, which is supposed to be handling everything about the player, right? It doesn't have any control over the extra mana that the player has. So we're gonna fix this, and we're gonna move the functionality for the mana back to the player instead of having the mana ops handler script here handle both the UI as well as the excess mana for the player, because it's just a little weird, right, that you have the excess, the player controller handling everything, but then the mana ops are being handled by a separate script. So we're gonna move the functionality for the excess mana back to the player. Let me just show you what I mean, alright? I'm just gonna give the player some extra mana, and then we will be able to see this in action. Right, so if let me just disable the half mana. Going here. So I've gotta kill my own shade, right, for the mana to come back. And let me just get some extra mana. Okay, this might be a little complex to make happen without having a couple of extra mana ops in the scene. Let me just duplicate a few of them here. So I'm gonna get an extra mana, and then you will see that the extra mana is actually managed by the... See, so now we have 2 mana off, right? See the extra mana that we have, it isn't managed by the player controller script over here. So the player right here has a player controller script, but this component here doesn't manage the extra mana. It's managed by mana ops over here, right? And then there'll be op fails and everything. So the extra mana is based on how much the image here is filled up. Which, well, when we code games, usually we want to separate the functionality for UI and the functionality for, the actual mana itself is a mechanic, right? But then the UI is part of the screen, and we usually separate the functionality. We don't code them together into the same component. So in this part, we're gonna fix this as well. This was an oversight when we were coding the earlier parts of the series. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so I'm just going to follow this article here, and I'm just going to run through the first script that we will be bringing into the project, and it is the UI health script. So this is an entirely new script, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the whole script. I'm going to put it inside the UI folder in the project. And then I'll run through briefly what the script does. So the UI health script is meant to replace the other script that we had for managing health. The UI for health, or the hearts, right? So we were gonna replace the hearts parent. We're gonna replace the hearts parent game object here, and the hearts parent game object is actually controlled by this script, and it's called the heart controller right here. And well, what the heart controller does is it basically has a function called update hearts UI, and then we hook update hearts UI to the player controller script, which is right here. So how the player updates the health of the UI display for health is there is this delegate. Right now it's delegate. There is this delegate on health change delegate right here. And then this delegate is actually assigned inside of the UI manager. Or is it somewhere else? I can't remember where I put it. Delegate on health changed. Nope, it's not here. There we go, it's here. So how the heart controller works is there is this function here that updates the health, the heart's HUD, and basically what it does is that it just reads the amount of health that the player has, and then it decides how many hearts to fill, and it decides how many hearts to show as well based on the total health that the player has. So the configurations over here don't really offer much flexibility, because a lot of the stuff that we have over here, there's actually only 2 variables. We assign this container over here, this is where the hearts go, and then these are the heart prefabs. Beyond that, there isn't a lot of customizability. And in our new script over here, the UI health, I'm just gonna add this UI health component onto the canvas first. It's not supposed to be on the canvas, but I just want to run through. Okay, I can't do that here. Let me just modify the canvas then. I'm just gonna add a new. Okay, just give me a moment here, because I'm not sure if I'm still connected. Okay, so as I was saying, I'm creating a new hearts UI game object over here, and I'm gonna be attaching the new UI health script onto this game object, and I'm just gonna run through what's on there. So UI health, the script is actually Firstly, it actually extends the UI screen, so we can do any kind of fade in and fade out we want to the UI health in the future. And secondly, we have a couple of fields that we can play around with. So the top section here, these are the standard UI screen variables, and they are the same as the ones that we had in part 12. Let me just move this component up. The more interesting settings are over here. We have health per unit, we have health unit prefab, access health unit prefab, and then we have container path, field path, and then we have access health color, which I think actually isn't used. Access health color. So let me just remove this one then, because this isn't used. So that means we are left with just 5 variables right here. Okay, so we have a couple more settings. Okay, so health per unit allows us to have things like, for example, half a heart or something. Later on, we set up the entire system. I'll show it to you. We also have health unit prefab and access health unit prefab. So these two will determine like what prefab is used to display normal health and what is used to display access health. And then the container and field path I'll also explain to you later once we get it up. So the container and field path exists because firstly, we have the health per unit setting, which allows us to, so I understand in a Hollow Knight, it's not possible to lose half a heart of health, but I want to make this project as customizable as possible. So let's say if you want to have 1 heart represent, let's say 2 health or 4 health, it's possible with this new system. So the health UI is going to be, I'm just going to leave this game object over here right now, and we're going to just start setting up the rest of the code base first. All right, so if you look at the article, you will also find a more detailed write-up as to why we want to create a new health UI script, and the explanations are, well, they're did I open the wrong project? Okay, it's the correct project. Okay, so you'll find a more detailed explanation of why the recoding is needed, and also an explanation of the fields that we have, the same one that I've just explained to you. Next thing we're gonna redesign as well is the before I forget, right? Okay, so the UI health is actually designed to be much easier to use than the heart controller. You will find the heart controller has a whole bunch of functions, and then you have to hook this function onto the delegate of the player controller, which is just like a little bit of a roundabout way to do things. And in the new UI health script, right, we just have a refresh function, and then whenever you want to update the health, you will just have to call refresh, and then you will pass it health, max health, and then how much excess health you want to have. That's all you need. And then by passing these 3 pieces of information into the UI health component, the UI health will decide how many hearts to draw, how many blue hearts to draw as well, and whether, you know, the hearts will be half or full or whatever. So it's really useful, and it's more robust than the previous system that we had. The UI mana system works similarly. I'm just gonna place this one here into the UI folder as well, and I am going to name, of course, the script UI mana. And the UI mana script it's gonna work the same as the UI health script. It's just gonna have refresh function, and it takes mana, max mana, excess mana. Excess mana are the extra orbs that you get, and then we have excess max mana as well. All right, so by setting these 4 things, the system will know how much of the main orb to fill and how much of the side orbs to fill as well. And the storage of the excess mana is going to go into the player controller instead of going onto the UI script itself. So now the UI mana, unlike the mana orbs handler, is going to exclusively just handle the UI, and then all the player is going to do is just pass the information about mana, the max mana, and the excess mana, and the excess max mana onto the UI component. So these 2 are pretty simple scripts. They are simple, but they are versatile, and we are going to be implementing both of them. But for us to be able to implement both of these scripts onto our project, we will first have to update our player controller script, because, well, we have to make a couple of changes. Firstly, we have to move the access mana values back into the player controller script. But first, we have to update the UI manager first, because the UI manager is responsible for handling both the health and the mana settings for the player. Let me just grab the script and just open it here. So you'll see the UI manager, right, actually has this very weird job of handling the mana state. So you will see the UI script for the mana is actually spread all over the project. We have some codes in mana ops controller, which is right here, and then we have some so we have some scripts that are handling the mana and the UI manager. We have some scripts that are handling mana and mana ops handler, and then we have some scripts that are handling, and then the player controller basically uses mana ops handler, if I'm not wrong, for retrieving the amount of extra mana that the player has. So the functionality is not well segmented into different parts. The UI manager shouldn't be managing the UI for half mana. That should be done by the mana UI script itself, right? So we're gonna switch around the UI manager script a little bit, and what we're gonna do is basically just to remove all the mana functionality for all the parts of the UI manager that handle the mana that handle the halving of the mana. We're gonna let it be handled by UI mana instead, because in the UI mana section we have a variable that controls the max mana, so we're able to reduce the max amount of mana that the player has to to have the half mana thing that happens when the player dies. So the penalty right here, the mana penalty is handled here by set mode. This handles just the UI section, and then we also have well, the penalty itself will be handled by the new player controller script that we will be using later on. So let's just grab our new UI manager script as well and implement it into our project. So one of the main changes, we remove the halving of the mana, the UI, and then we just have a update health UI and an update mana UI. So what these two functions do is, well, it updates the health and the mana, and it provides a way, because the player controller is linked to the UI manager, so instead of having to link the player controller onto health UI and UI health and UI mana as well, we'll just let the linkage to the UI manager handle the updating of the health and the updating of the mana. And that's really all the changes to the UI manager. And we'll have to change a couple of things later on as well. The new player controller script, right, which is right here, we are going to, well, there are a couple of changes to the script as well, and I'm just going to zoom in here, and then I can run through the changes on cam. So first, we create a new variable for excess health, and then we over here we have a hard shards per health. So previously this value was hard coded, so that you always have to collect four pickups that increase your health before you get an extra heart, right? But if you don't want that, if you want to change that value, instead of having to change the value in your code itself, you can now change the variable, and this will change the number of hearts that you need to gain a new health. We also mark the delegates obsolete because the new system will not use delegates. I always thought the delegate was a very roundabout way of doing things, and because delegates are used when you have multiple actions that you want to attach to one event, but then we only have one action attaching to the delegate, so it doesn't make sense for us to use the delegate. It just makes more sense for us to call the function to update the UI directly instead. And we remove all the old mana functionality, and well, here in its place, we create some new mana functionality. So some of the variables are the same, like mana is the same, max mana, it's not the same though. And then we have this mana penalty that replaces the half mana boolean that we have over here. So the mana penalty allows us to set the maximum mana of the player more directly. So let's say if after you die and you want that to be half mana, right? You just have to set the mana penalty here to 0.5, which you'll be doing later in the game manager script. So beyond that, we have excess mana settings, and then these are responsible for the settings. These are responsible for the extra orbs that we have, right? So in Hollow Knight, because we have 3 extra orbs that you can get, right? So then here we have well, we start with 0 excess mana, and then 1 excess mana unit is just 1 orb, and then the number of orbs that you can have is determined here. And then we also have a mana per excess unit setting, which is right here. So previously, each of the orbs, they accounted for 0.33 mana. And again, it's a very hard-coded way of doing things, and it's not customizable because a lot of these numbers are inside this code itself. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get these numbers and move them out, so that when you're using this project for your own games, you can just modify the variables that we have right here, and then this will settle your issue. So you don't have to, go and find all the parts of the code that determine all these different mana values. You can just change the variable here, and then this will allow you to mod your game very easily. The last 2 values over here are number 1, the amount of time, because when you heal in Hollow Knight, there is a delay before the heart comes out, right? So this value is the delay. And then we also have the restore rate, which is sorry, I got this wrong. This value is when in Hollow Knight, when you hit something, when you use your mana, it takes a while for the excess mana to fill up the main mana orb. So later, if you my editor, if you're editing this video, just overlay a video of a character using their mana with excess mana in Hollow Knight, and then showing how the mana goes in the main orb. Excess mana restore is how fast the restoration happens, because it takes time for the mana to flow. So instead of having the mana restore instantly, we're gonna have the mana restore slightly over time. And then we also have a restore cooldown, which is after restoration, how much time do we have to wait. So this restore cooldown over here is not shown. It's just whenever we spend mana, it will take whenever we spend mana, this will fill up with the number right here, and then it will take us, like in this case, 3 seconds before the mana starts restoring to the main orb again. And then we have mana shards, which is just the amount of mana shards that we picked up. And mana shards per excess unit is basically, if you pick up 4 shards, then you will get 1 extra orb of mana. And this again used to be hard-coded, and I'm just changing this into a variable so that it can be very easily adjusted in the player controller side. And I've moved the mana drain speed over here to spell settings, and then I've just changed the name to attack mana gain right here. This is I think a more descriptive name, because mana drain speed doesn't really say, sorry, it's not mana drain speed, it's mana gain. Alright, so attack mana gain is actually mana gain right here. I just renamed the variable to make it more clear what kind of variable it was, because I think this name wasn't very descriptive. And then the heal mana cost per second is mana drain speed. So when you heal, right, in Hollow Knight, your mana starts draining, and then after it drains beyond a certain point, you get 1 extra heart. And I just wanted to make this more descriptive. Instead of saying mana drain speed, I wanted to call it heal mana cost per second. Alright, so these are just renames of these are just us renaming variables to make them more descriptive of their actual use. Okay, so further down below, right, we just replace basically our references to mana orb sender right here, and all the old mana functionality is replaced, and because we're gonna handle this somewhere else. And then over here we have a call to update health UI. This call will happen whenever we want to update the health of the player character on the UI. And then we have a new function here called handle mana restore with handle restore mana with access. And what this does is that whenever whenever the game is running, it will constantly be checking for whether the main mana orb is full. If it's not full and you have excess mana, the mana will flow into the main orb. And this is run every frame as long as we're alive. What else do we have? So whenever the mana is restored, later on we're going to have a couple of functions as well that handles the setting and the getting of the mana values. They're all the way below here. So here we have one thing in the hit function where if you hit an enemy, then it just causes to gain mana. And before, because we had mana spread over 2 places, right? Okay, we had to either award the mana to the main mana inside the player controller, or if the mana is full, then we had to put the mana into the mana orbs handler. But because now excess mana is handled by the player controller script, we can just directly add the mana, and then this mana getter and setter will handle the logic for us. I can't wait to show you this one here, but just we have to scroll down to the part. So here we have take damage, and then take damage here has a little bit of an extra functionality here where we absorb extra damage with the excess health. So if we have any kind of excess health right here, then this absorbs the damage that we will receive. And then if there is no excess health, then we'll minus the health. And under the respawn function, there is also an optional variable here for how much mana penalty we'll get. Default value is 0.5, so whenever you die, right, then your mana will be halved until you kill your shade. So it's the same functionality, but just because right now it's using different variables right here. So that's the reason for the change. There is also a little checker here to prevent null reference exceptions from occurring, because if we do not have a rigid body and we try to access rb.constraints, we'll get a null reference exception. Same thing for the animation here. Before we play an animation, we just do a check to see if the animation animator object is there. And then the rest of the lines are similar to what we have right here, except that instead of having the UI manager switch the mana interface to show the half mana, we will just have UI manager update mana UI, and then we will just specify a mana penalty here, and then this will cause the UI manager to halve the mana, and not just half the mana but also change the UI interface. Because if you recall, in the UI manager script, when we update the mana UI, we also call set mode, and set mode is basically this function over here that changes the UI of the mana based on whether you are having a penalty or not. It's quite a mouthful, right? There's quite a few changes right here. For restore mana, this is a function that basically changes mana back to a value of 1. Because the system is changed, we have to just change our values with it. And you'll notice here the code becomes a great bit simpler as well, because we just have to set a mana penalty to 0, and then the UI will update itself. Okay, so what else do we have? Further down below, we have the getters and setters for health. And here I'm just changing the code over here so that whenever the health value changes, after updating the health, we update the UI manager as well. And then for excess health, it's the same thing. We update the UI health. So these two are variables that are settable, and whenever you set the health for the excess health variables, it also updates the UI, which makes the whole process a lot smoother. So we have a new function called convert heart shards, and these are used by our pickups, because when we convert the heart shards previously, this code here was actually done inside of our, let me show you the old code that we have actually. So we have where are our heart shards? Right here. So we have this whole we have this whole bunch of logic that determines whether the health should be increased, right? And then we have a whole bunch of math right here. And when the health increases, we set the max health to 1, and then after that we change this heart shards value back to 0. And then the fill amount over here basically, sorry, heart shards. The logic was somewhere, but I forgot where it was. Okay, so anyway, this function right here, right? It's meant to complement the new settings that we have over here. If you recall, under our health settings, we have a heart shards for health, and this will allow us to control how many pickups we need before we get an extra unit of health. So because we have that, now we have to have this function over here to calculate how many heart shards or how many mana shards we need to convert the health or the mana into actual gain health or gain mana. So here's one for convert heart shards, and it's the same as convert mana shards right here, right? And then when you have enough of the shards for health or mana, then it just adds a new health, a new unit of health or a new unit of mana for yourself. And you will see here we have a water units as well, which is a variable that I think remaining unit heart shards, health. Okay, so what this does is that if you collect more than one heart shard, so it's possible for some pickups it's possible for you to code your pickup so that when you pick something up, it gives you more than one heart shard. So if that happens, you'll have to make sure that the amount of heart shards that you awarded is accurate. If you have 8 heart shards collected in one instance and you have, let's say, 4 heart shards per health, then one pickup will give you 2 extra hearts, and we want to have this in so that our function becomes more dynamic. And the old function that we had, if I'm not wrong, it only added 1 heart no matter how many shards you collected. So this prevents that, and also we prevent being able to collect more hearts than we have the total health. So if you're already at the total health, that means that let's say if your max health is 10, your total max health is 10 as well. Remaining units here will be 0, and if this is 0, then you will not be able to get extra hearts no matter how many heart shards you pick up. So this is just it's just here to make the function more robust. It's to make the whole system more robust, and you're able to create pickups that allow you to raise your health by multiple points when you complete it. So for the mana section, we changed the way that this works again because previously we had to assign the mana to the mana ops controller if we had excess mana and we were still gaining mana. So the setter here has been totally recorded such that now we have we try and find out how much excess mana we have, and if we have any excess mana, okay, sorry, let me retry this. All right, so this mana setter right here, the first thing we do is check whether the mana that we have is equivalent to the max mana. All right, so this value here is the current mana that we have, and if we do not have if this mana that we have right now minus the max mana is equals to 0, this means that we already have all the mana that we need. So this means that, okay, sorry, I'm confusing myself a little bit here. Okay, so if we set the mana to be above the max mana, then the extra mana will be assigned to excess mana right here. Okay, otherwise, then you will just set the mana regularly, and then after that you will trigger the cooldown for excess mana that we have. So then this will prevent. So this cooldown, basically what it does is that it constantly checks whether your mana ops really failed. If it's not failed, then it will just grab mana from the excess mana and move it to the main mana op. And finally, updates the UI right here. we have this excess mana script over here as well, and what it does is when you're setting the excess mana, basically we're just clamping the value between 0 and then the maximum amount of excess mana that we can have. And the maximum amount of excess mana we can have is set by excess max mana units and mana per excess unit. And then we also have max mana right here, which of course gives us the maximum amount of mana that we can have. And this is also affected by the mana penalty that we have. So if you have mana penalty of 0.5, then your max mana will be reduced when you retrieve it by the max mana getter right here. Convert mana shards, same as convert heart shards. I don't have a lot to say. And then the rest of the code here is just removing any references to the mana handler script. Okay, it's quite a lot of changes, but really what the changes here involve is just accommodating excess health and moving the functionality for excess mana right into the player controller script. So then we don't have to, pull the excess mana information from another script, which is really messy. So this sorts everything a little bit better, and it makes everything a little bit cleaner. But after we move the player controller script onto our project, we will find a couple of errors because some of the old variables have been removed, and now we will have to change our scripts in other places so that they use the correct variables. The first of these scripts are Game Manager, because it previously uses the half mana variable right here. This has to be changed to use the mana penalty variable. And I think that's all about all the changes. The rest, the other thing is just under respawn player, we have to have an optional variable here called mana penalty, because in the player controller we just made a change to the respawn function, right, to take a mana penalty variable. So then we have to update the respawn player function as well. So just two changes in the game manager script, which I can't find. Okay, found it. Just copy and paste this in. And then under inventory manager, we have a little change right here as well. This is to change the mana shards. So previously, you will see the values here they are hard coded, and then we have to update these values here so that they're no longer hard coded. This shouldn't actually be 0.25, and this shouldn't be 0.34. This should be, okay, let me update this. I just realized the mistake right here, so I'm gonna log in, update this value. So my editor, you will have to just cut out this part. So this here should be, we're just updating this variable here because the op shard is renamed to mana shards, and really that's about it. But I've also seen a little problem here that I want to fix. So let me just grab this piece of code right here first and put it inside inventory manager, right? And then this, instead of being 0.25, a hard-coded value, right? We don't want that because we already have a value called heart shards per health. So this will be 1 over heart shards per health. This will be bracketed. And then this, instead of being 0.34, this will be 1 over the controller instance mana shards per excess. So again, this allows us to have these variables set, how many hearts we need to get an extra health, or how many mana shards we need to get an extra unit of mana. A much more flexible way for us to do things. And now I just gotta jump into the post and update the code as well. Manager, yes. We just have 2 lines of changes. Heart shard and mana shards. And then let me just save the changes. Oh, wait. Little mistake here. Change the mana shards, and then this part here I've got to change as well. Got to highlight the changes. can't just replace the code like this. Almost forgot. Okay, so let me re-explain this section so my editor can use this clip. Let's go back to the inventory manager. So the change the inventory manager here involves us really it's updating this variable here because we renamed the op shard variable to mana shards, which is a more descriptive name. And also because we have new variables here, heart shards per health and mana shards per access unit. Instead of using a hard-coded value, now we can just grab 1 over heart shards per health. So if this value here is 4, right, this will give us 1 over 4, which is 0.25. And if this value here is 3, then this will give us 0.33333. Okay? So under save data, we've got to make some changes as well because some of the variables, again, are no longer there. So this is responsible for the player save data, and we just have to rename some of the variables here to fit the new variables that we have, and then we have to make sure that the way these variables are saved are updated as well. So when we build a new save system that will be coming on part 15, we will also replace this entire script. So this change here really isn't the most important, but it's required, otherwise we'll get a bunch of errors and our code won't work. So let's head over to, where is save data script under singletons. There we go. And yeah, so it's just a whole bunch of changes to the code. Just making use of the new variables instead of the old ones. And we also have to update the add mana op and the op shard pickups. In the next part, we will be replacing these scripts with newer scripts that are more robust, as has been the case with the last two parts, where we are just making our codes a little more robust, a little more modular, right? We'll be doing the same thing to our pickups in the next part as well, but right now we will have to update our script, or again, they won't work. So it's just from add mana op, it's just instead of checking for the old variable, again we're using the new variables right here. And what we are doing here is just disallowing the pickup from triggering if we already have okay, this one here is wrong, the script here is wrong. If excess mana is greater than excess max mana. This here should be mana shards, right? If mana shards. Okay, let me just make this modification here as well. So it seems like my code here is wrong as well, so I'm gonna modify this. Let me just grab this code here and let me implement the correct one. This one here should be if mana is it excess mana greater than excess max mana? Excess max mana units. My bad, this should be excess max mana units greater than excess max mana units limit. So this controls, so for this should be 3, and if I have more than, let's say, whatever is set here in the player controller, if the amount of excess mana units that I have is more than whatever is set here, then this pickup won't work, because this pickup essentially increases the amount of max mana that I have. And there is a convert op shards somewhere, right? So when this is picked up, this increases the amount of mana shards the player controller has. And then we have convert excess units. Where is my convert excess units? Convert hard shards. And convert mana shards. Where is this called? Gotta figure this out. Because I don't see it here. I think it's inside the code here. See? Gonna have to do a search. Line string. Okay, it's the wrong project I'm looking for. Let's go to Metroidvania prototype here. Scripts. Convert hard shards. Convert. And I don't think the pickups do that. So we have to increase. After increasing the mana shards we have, where is the part that okay, if I'm not wrong, we're gonna have to handle the conversion right here actually. And right here is the same thing. Gotta make a couple of changes here. And then I've got to test this part out actually. Just making sure that everything works. Upgrade pickup. So this was done in upgrade pickup, which is well, the next part. So I have to adapt it over. Just give me a moment to work this out, right? So the pickup will have to handle the converting as well. So let me just head inside here and make some changes. So this increases the amount of mana shards that we have, and after that's increased, we will just let everything work itself out first, and then we will have to call player controller instance convert mana shards right here. So this will just check whether we can convert the mana shards into an additional point of mana. And then for the op shard, it's the same thing. We can actually remove the extra the functions over here because they don't really do anything. And we will increase the mana shards. Add mana on. So the op shot increases the health, right? That would be the hard shot actually. So the op shot, what does it do? Increases mana ops and op shot. Update our script for the hard and op shots. Where is our hard shot here? Op chart script shouldn't be used anymore, I think. Can go ahead and remove that. So the op shot is it's just a field. So if it's just a field, we will have to so over here I'm just gonna change this. So over in the op chart code, we are just updating things so that they use the correct variables. And then under hard shots, we will have to change some things as well. Right? Because here, again, we'll be updating this in the next part, but this is no longer necessary. Let me just grab the code, put them right here. H4, so again, the pickup code will be vastly improved in the following part. But here, because we just have to get them to work with our current changes as well, and that is why we're making the existing changes. And here, we just the fill and everything. So fill amount is equals to 1. So here, there's nothing that we need to change, right? We just don't need this anymore. So if we update the max health, instead of calling this, we are going to have to go to the UI manager instead, and then calling update UI health. This would be more appropriate for our project. So we have health, max health. Again, the code here is a little messy, but we'll rectify it. And the last thing that we have to update will be, we have orb shard, we have heart shard, then we have add mana orb, and then we should have add health thing as well, right? Let me just go and find where it is. Add orb shard, increase max health. This will be increase max health script that we have to update, and this increases the amount of heart shards that we have. This should be whatever this is, but this will be 1. Heart shards divided by heart shards per health. Let me just copy and paste this whole thing first, because we've got to update this. So here with H4, release. So what we have here should be, first we removing these, and it's the wrong script here. This should be in, and this is actually replacing the previous line here that we had, which was this, and finally we grab the increase max health here for the changes. So the change for increased max health is, instead of using these hard-coded values, it's going to be using this 0.25 is gone. In its place will be player controller instance. Then we have that heart shards per health. Just give me a moment, yeah. Now my browser is stuck. Okay, it's back. That's great. Initial field amount, target amount. This should be cancelled. So this here should be cancelled as well. And then changed with the divide by here. Okay, so let's try this again. I'm gonna just talk about this from the beginning, and my editor is it should have a easier time here putting this together. So we have to update the op chart and the update the UI, updating the health and pickup. So here we update the health and mana pickups. Okay, so let me try this again, right? So now that we have the player controller script updated, this affects our some of our old scripts as well. So this is basically a pop-up that shows the increase of your mana when you pick up a orb. So it references some of the older variables that player controller has. So this is the same as the previous part where we have to update our variables, right? And then we just have to update this to use the newer variables. And of course, also we will have to use the new variables here. Instead of having the hard-coded value of 0.34, we will have we will just grab the variables that we have here. So mana shards will be, let's say I have 2 mana shards, right? I need 4 mana shards to get an extra mana. So that means that the initial fill amount is half, and then after that when I increase the mana shards that I have over here, then this should be half, and then this should be 0.75. So this will control the animation going from half to 0.75. And we also add a convert mana shards right here, because after the shards are added, we will have to check whether we have enough mana to give an extra unit of mana. And op shard is this is the pickup, right? And then this is the UI, and we're just updating the variables here as well. For increased max health, it's the same thing, and I'm just missing one thing right here. Here we will have wait 5 seconds. Do a player controller instance convert. Convert hard. So for increased max health, again, we just remove the hard-coded value and add our new variables. And then after that, we have a convert heart shards over here to control the conversion of the hearts from heart shards into actual hearts once you exceed the maximum amount of hearts. This will be improved in the next part when we revamp the pickup. For heart shards, we just have to update the variable, same thing. So over here on health change callback, it's no longer used. We just swap it over to update health UI. Alright, so just update the 4 of your scripts like this to make use of the new changes and to reference the new variables, and then after that everything should be working fine. And then the last part of this video is going to be us going through implementing the actual UI itself, and then I can show you the various features of our new UI system. This is op shard and this is add mana. I just want to ensure that I've got everything copied to our project. Does not contain a definition for. Okay, a few last things. We have to update the mana ops handler as well, because again, it's referencing the old variables. We are not using this script anymore, but still, because I don't want to delete it yet, because just deleting things willy-nilly like that is going to break our project. So I'm gonna copy mana ops handler as well, and just well, here we just mana ops will be mana shards, right? My bad, actually mana ops, not mana shards. Mana ops. This should be excess mana units. There we go. It's not mana ops. But otherwise, yeah, it's just another updating of the variables. And one thing to note here is I'm marking this script as obsolete, and this is because we are no longer using it. So if you try and use this script, Unity warns you that, hey, you're using something that's old. Same thing for the HUD controller. Where is the HUD controller? Right here. Marking this as obsolete as well. And what this does is that if I go back to the program now, you should see there are no more errors. But more importantly, you should see that your old scripts, like for example the HUD controller, has now been marked as obsolete. This is just whenever you switch from one system to another, you don't want to just delete the old scripts, because this may break your program, because if you delete the script, this will leave the component empty. So I'm just deprecating it or marking it as obsolete. This will tell you that the script is deprecated. Alright, deprecated means it's replaced, essentially. It's being phased out of the project. So now all the scripts are in place, and my next job is to, after running through all the scripts, is to show you how you can implement the new UI with the new components. The first thing I'm going to do is just to, you will see there is this new HUDs file. This is the old one, the old sprites that we were using, and this is the new one that we're using. It's edited to be a sprite sheet because this is sprite sheets are generally more efficient compared to having separate pieces of art. So I've combined these two into one, and you also notice that this file is the HUD here is white, and I'm going to explain why they're white in a moment. Let me just import this first. Import new asset. So the reason the sprites are white is because white sprites are tintable. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this to multiple, and then I'm gonna slice this sprite here by cell count, and then this will be 2 by 1. Right? So why do I use a white HUD instead of a red one? This is because, and if they're white, if my sprite is white, not sure why I can't see it. I think this is because it's behind everything. Let me just move it to the foreground. The reason why I want my sprite to be white is because it makes it very easy when you tint it, right? If you have a colored sprite, then it's harder for you to tint it. And remember that we have blue HUDs and red HUDs, right? So if we have white HUDs, then it's very easy for us to change the color from one to another. It makes our lives a lot easier. Next thing I'm going to do is to just go and create a new prefab right here under game object. Sorry, it's not under game object. Let me just go to the assets over here, prefabs. Under the prefabs folder, I'm going to create a new UI folder. And inside here, I'm just going to create a new prefab, and this prefab is going to be called the HUD. What is it called again? The HUD default. Sorry, HUD regular. So this will denote a regular HUD. And here, I'm just going to play around with some I'm just gonna do some tricks over here so that we just gonna apply a few little tricks here, right, to make our HUD as versatile as possible. What do I mean by that? So first, because this is gonna go on a canvas, the first thing I'm gonna do is to convert this to a rect transform so that it goes on a canvas. And once this is done, I'm gonna add an image to this sprite, to this game object, and then I'll assign my HUD onto the image. And the HUD stuff here, I will use the left-hand side HUD, the one that doesn't have the little bubble inside. And I'm just gonna head back to the scene. And in the scene itself, I'm gonna open the canvas. Actually, I'm gonna do my work on the HUD, the health UI game object that I've just created. This is empty. This is totally empty. And we're going to configure it later on, right? So, but first, I will leave my hard prefab inside here so that I can see the hard prefab actually working, right? So I'm just putting it inside here, and you will see it appears in my screen now. So now I can go back to the prefab, open it, and now I can see the image, because previously it wasn't on canvas, so I couldn't see the image. And here what I want to do is just to make this semi-transparent. I'm just going to make the alpha value here like really small. I'm going to change this to RGB 0. Just move the, I'm just going to change this from 255 over here to 0 to 1, and then I'm just going to have alpha of like 0.2, like this. Real small value, right? And next thing I'm going to do is to add a shadow, sorry, outline component here. This outline component is really useful because you see that it gives us a really nice effect on the heart. And I'm going to increase the outline as well. And you'll see that it gives us a very nice outline of our heart container. I'm going to make this filled as well. Right, so the reason why I make the image type filled is because when I do this, I'm able to fill the heart like this. So do you see this? I'm gonna let the fill be horizontal so then I can see the heart like this. So this allows us to have a heart container that has like half a heart or like a quarter of a heart and stuff, you know. So if you want to have the half heart scenario, right, you can just, you know, make this heart fill halfway, and because we use outline, the outline is always going to, you know, the heart is always going to look normal. It's not like because your sprite doesn't support half hearts. And this is how the heart looks like. I think it's pretty good, you know. It looks like a container, right? And then from here we can add one more game object inside here. This will be an image as well, and this extra image over here, by the way, for the original image, let's check preserve aspect so that later on when we stretch this around it doesn't cause us any problems. So for this extra image over here, same thing, I'm gonna grab the other heart onto it. This other heart right here, gonna make this filled again, and then this is gonna go horizontal, right? So this other heart over here, I can tint it red like this. And I'm also gonna give it an outline so that it fits in with the rest of the other heart. Outline here as well like this, and it has a fill, right? So now if I like fill the heart, let's say halfway, you'll see this half a heart effect actually looks pretty decent, and the outline itself, you know, it doesn't look weird. Whereas if I use the old sprite, let me just show you, right? If I use the old sprite here, then without the outline, right, if I have half a heart over here, it doesn't look very good because there is no line that completes and covers everything, which is why the new outline method is much better for generating hearts and stuff. So this should be here. I hope I'm making sense. Right? If you have any questions, you can always post them in the comments. I'm gonna call this a little red thing inside the field. So now we have a heart that is able to fill up its container like this. And then we also have the container itself is shiftable. So if I want to only award half a heart, for example, right, I'm able to just set the hearts to be like fill of 0.5 for both. And this works very well. And the fill can, of course, reduce even further. See that? So this new heart prefab here is a lot more flexible than the old one. You know, we can have half a heart, a quarter of a heart, or whatever. You know, like if you want to have like 1/3 of a heart, you can always just use the radial way of filling. Radial 360, and this gives me like a quarter of a heart, for example. Really flexible. It was something that wasn't available in our old system, right? So we have to build our heart in this way as well to make it as versatile as possible. All right, so that is our heart regular prefab. Make sure that you set the fill type correctly, otherwise if you do the half a heart or a quarter of a heart, it may not show up properly. Right, so with this hard done, we will also have to create one more new prefab. For this other prefab, I can actually just Control C, Control V to duplicate him, and then I'm just gonna call this extra hard do. This will be the extra hard, and this will be how the extra hard looks like. Extra hard is going to be, I'm just gonna delete the fill here, and I'm just gonna tint this blue. And I'm gonna make this completely opaque like this. And this will use the other sprite, hard sprites one. So for the excess hearts, right? Because in Hollow Knight, the excess hearts don't have a container. So if you lose the heart, you just lose like that, the whole thing. So because of that, there is no need for us to have a container as a background. We will just have the wholesale heart right there. So now we have two prefabs, a blue heart, and then we have also the regular heart. And notice I'm modifying the canvas directly as well, because later on, in later versions of Unity in 2021 that I'm using, it's not possible for you to modify the objects inside the prefab directly like this. So now that both the hearts are created, I can create a new heart UI, health UI game object like this, and this new health UI game object, right? Let me just remove the heart regular first, because this new health UI game object, I will have to ensure that it's placed in the right places. Okay, so what this means is that I'll first have to anchor it at the correct part of the screen. So I'm gonna grab the anchors over here. This will be 0.2 and this will be 0.95. So as I change the anchor, you see these little petals over here change locations as well. This will be 0.8, 0.9. So once I set the anchors and I set the location for the 4 petals, if I set everything here to 0, you should now see that there is a border here that appears. This should be 0.95 actually, right? Stretch things a little bit further. Let me see what the values here. 0.8, 0.9. Let me use 0.9 then. Okay, so once I do that, then you will see that the borders are right here. So what I want to do is to have a horizontal layout group actually, and then I will center it on the middle center like this. I will check all of these. The height over here is all checked. Alright, so with a horizontal layout group, what this means is that when I place hearts inside here, right, it will just populate horizontally like this. Okay, it will just fill itself up like this. And if I want to control the size of each of the hearts, then I'm going to have to go into the prefabs. Because previously I didn't set the size, so I'm just going to go in here and the size will be 64 by 64 for each of the hearts. I don't want them to be too large. I think the article recommends we set this to 64 by 64, right? Yeah, there we go, 64 by 64. So I'm going to change the fill as well. Make sure that as preserve aspect is checked for all of your hearts, right? For the fill and for the outlines. Same thing for the blue heart. So once I've shrunk everything, you should see that now the hearts should be a little bit smaller. There's still a little sizing issue right here, which we can always rectify by just going back to the canvas, opening the prefab. Let me just reassign the hearts. It should look much better. So now you should see the hearts should line up. This is similar to the old system that we have so far. And I'm just gonna align all the hearts to the left, right? Middle left like this. Okay, so then when you place hearts inside, they will just fill up accordingly. I'm not sure why the blue heart is so much smaller than the red one. (64 by 64). This is filled as well. Why is this guy so much smaller than this? When they both are 64 by 64. Okay, I'm just gonna recreate the blue heart. Not sure what's the issue here. Let me just delete the prefab and recreate it using the red heart again. It's the fastest way to fix the issue. Delete the old one, delete only. And then let me just duplicate this guy over. Blue. So our new heart blue is going to be just gonna make it blue, obviously. This, and the fill is gone. The fill is the one that is small. Why is the fill so much smaller? Oh, I didn't stretch it. See, the fill has to be stretched. So I made a little mistake when I was making the heart regular prefab just now, because the actual heart itself and the fill, when I start using the fill, right, the fill doesn't stretch. So the fill has to always stretch, otherwise the fill will not work properly with the heart itself. It will always stretch out to the wrong places. So I just gotta stretch the fill like that, and then the heart will fix itself. And then for heart blue, right? Heart blue is actually fine, like everything works fine. Okay, so let's try this again. So I just missed a little step just now. Forgot to get everything to fill up properly. Let me just place more heart blues inside. So everything should be tidying up fine right now, like after fixing the fill issue. So for the health UI, right, usually what I like to do is just to place a heart regular in, as well as a heart blue like this, just to give us a sense of where the hearts are. And then once this setting is done, what you want to do is go to your canvas. Again, you want to modify the prefab, right? Because let me just rename this to heart regular. Should it be heart regular? Okay, so for the heart UI here, what I want to do is let's go back to the canvas right here, and let's remove the heart controller, as well as, I think that's the only script that we want to remove, as well as the heart parent object that I've just removed. Sorry, this one, right? So we remove these two, and then this heart UI will replace our heart UI. And then in the UI manager itself, what you want to do as well is to assign the health UI here. And that is all you have to do. In the health UI itself, we have health UI script, right? So we can just make sure that everything is assigned. Okay, so let's grab our heart blue and put it here, and then let's grab our heart regular and put it here, okay? And then health per unit, I will show you later when the UI is working, how when I change this changes the way the hearts display. And then finally, we have container path and field path. Container path basically controls, it's the path for the container itself. The container is, in our case here, is heart regular, right? So let's just leave it blank because this is the root prefab. And then for the fill object, because this is called fill. So what I'm gonna do here is in the health UI, just call this fill path fill. And this is all the setup that's needed for our health, the UI health script. The mana stuff is going to be a little more complicated. Okay, the mana stuff, we will have to create a new game object. I'm gonna call this mana UI. And the mana UI, unlike the health UI, right? Forgot I have to modify the canvas itself. But the mana UI, unlike the health UI, call this mana UI. place it to go right below mana stuff here, right? Unlike the health UI, right? Mana UI is gonna have a rect transform and also an image, and it's just gonna take a circle. So for the circle, if you want to see it, you will have to click on this button over here and search for circle. And from here, I'm gonna get the circle to be there. There's a position that the circle has to go to. All right, so the anchors be 0.05, 0.2, 0.7, and 1. So I'm just gonna place 0.05, 0.2, 0.7, and 1. This will create a square around where the old circle is, and then just zero out everything here. And your circle should take this position. To get the circle to show up properly, you just want to check preserve aspect over here, and you will see our mana orb is kind of in place. And of course, we will have to add a couple of things to it. So the circle itself will represent our mana, and we will set the image type to filled here, and then this will be filling vertically, so the mana will fill up like this. Alright, so far it's the same as the old system, right? And then we add a UI mana component right here. This is the script that we just added. It requires a couple of different components here, but first let's just assign this to primary field, because this primary field is just a field that is just this circle over here. Alright, next thing we're gonna do is just to beautify the mana UI a little bit. I'm gonna add one more image under it. This will be called overlay. Overlay itself uses a circle as well. And this time here, we will preserve aspect as well. And we'll make sure that this overlay is stretched actually. Alright, so then it covers the entire of our original mana UI. I'm gonna set the transparency here to 0.2. And I'm going to then add an outline. So the outline will give me this very nice effect around the circle. And if I increase the size of the outline, then this becomes, of course, more obvious. So it depends on how obvious you want the lines to be. For me, I'm just trying an effect distance of 3 and 3. Okay, I'm gonna delete the old mana staff game object here, right? So then only the new orb remains. Okay, the overlay itself is supposed to allow us to just have a little effect on the orb. And then the actual, so when you spend mana, what will happen is this will reduce, and then you will get an orb like this. Okay, so again, it's a very subtle effect. It's not as in your face as the previous one. With this setup now, next thing we want to do is to, I think, let's set overlay black actually. Black is a better color right here. Okay, you can try white or black and you can see which one works. Okay, so the overlay, right? Next thing I want to do is download this image over here from the blog. If you're watching the video, there will be a link provided for you that you can use to download this in the video description. So I'm gonna grab the broken circle. I'm just gonna throw this into the hard stuff. Import a new asset right here, broken circle. This will be a sprite. And the broken circle, what it's gonna do is it's gonna apply to the overlay. So when your mana is half, then you'll get this. And of course, your mana UI, when it's half, this will be 0.5, right? So you get kind of like a broken thing going on right here. When it's 0.5, I think that this should be white, I'm sorry, so that you can see the lines better. Alright, so then the regular overlay will be just a regular circle, right? And then when it's broken, then you will have this. Alright, so it's a little bit of a better effect than the previous one. And the mana UI script here actually takes both the default overlay sprite, which is a circle, and then also a broken one, which is this one. Alright, so it will help you to swap between them later on. Overlay itself should go here. And the last thing that we need will be the excess orbs, which let me just copy and paste a copy of the mana UI later. Later you will know what this is for. I'm just making a copy of this, because right now I'm going to add one more game object over here. This is called excess orbs. And for the access ops, right, the anchors will be very interesting because the anchors are going to be set in a very interesting manner. And what's interesting about it is that the value here is negative. So let me show you what I mean, all right? So access ops over here, you want to set the anchor to be minus 0.3 and then 0 here. And what this gives you is you will see the anchor extends beyond the original op here. And then this y value will be 0 to 0.9. 0 to 0. So when I zero everything out, you will see that this is the area that it picks up, okay, which is to the left of your original ops, right? And then now with the copied op over here, I'm gonna call this op1. And op1 is gonna go into access ops over here. And then I have the values all recorded over here. The first op is 0 to 1, 0.35, sorry. First op is 0.2, 1.2. Alright, so op number 1 is gonna be 0.2 here, and then 1.2 here. And then it's going to be 0 and 0.3. So this will occupy this area over here. Let me see my access ops. I think my values are a little bit wrong. Okay, sorry, it's correct. So once I zero everything out, it's correct. It's gonna be here. Op number 2, gonna duplicate this. And we're gonna move the anchors around as well. So the anchor for op number 2 is going to be 0.35, 0.55. So this will be 0 to 1, 0.35, and then 0.55. Again, when I zero out all the values here, you will see the orb will occupy that space. Okay, and then the third orb is going to be, it's going to control D, duplicate it. Third orb is going to be a different set of values here. Let's see what it is. 0.2, 1.2, 0, 0.3. So 0.2, 1.2, 0, and then 0.3. So let me just zero this out and then see where this places us. This is the last orb, right? Sorry, it's the wrong one. 0.1, 0.65, 0.8. This places my orb actually here. Right, so you see the orbs are now placed correctly. And they are pretty much ready to use. I think the shadows are a little off. Shadow for the overlay. Let me just reduce the size of the outline. I think this will fix the issue for each of the individual orbs. Because 3 is too big a number. Yeah, so now we have our extra orbs. I'm gonna set all these orbs to fill up completely, and then I'll just let the Mana UI handle the rest of the work. Okay, so now my orbs are placed. If you want more orbs, you're just gonna have to handle their placements accordingly. And with all that stuff done, now we just have to go to Mana UI, and then under Access Fields UI, right? You'll get. Let me just make sure this shows up. Under Access Fields UI, set this to 3. This will get you 3 boxes. And then you assign Orb 1, Orb 2, and Orb 3. So I wanted to make this UI simpler for UI Mana, but because there is just a natural complexity to the Mana system in Hollow Knight, so I couldn't make them any more simpler than this. But now that all this is up, we just have to go back to our UI Manager. Again, you want to edit the prefab, right? So it applies to all your scenes. Under UI Manager, you want to assign Mana UI right here, and the whole thing should start working. So I'm just gonna. Where's my Mana UI? Why is it not showing up? The hearts are there. The Mana UI isn't exactly there. That's because of an incorrect value. This should be 0.71, right? Let me just revert the values here, and it should show up. The values were incorrectly set. I'm also, because this is touching the top, right, I'm going to go to the canvas again and modify the mana UI, and just give it a little margin at the top, you know, otherwise it looks a little odd like this. Okay, never mind. Before I do that, right, so let me just test this out first and make sure that it works, and then we apply a couple of fixes to make the UI look more responsive. So now it appears that there is some issue with the save data. Invalid scene name and invalid build index. Let me just remove the my editor. You can remove this section, alright? Why do I have this problem now? Let me just move the player up. Let me just cheat a little bit. This should fix the issue. Because the player is spawning outside of the map. So the mana isn't really working, but you should see under the player controller that there are a bunch of extra settings right here. The mana is just a ridiculous value. Let me just mana penalty is ridiculous value as well. Let me respawn myself. Why doesn't the respawn work as well? It's such a... So now this is missing again, and I'm gonna have to reassign a respawn player right here. Okay, so because we have a new respawn player function, so you have to reassign this, and this should work. This should be 0.5 here, by the way. So I respawn, and where is my character? Why is the character always falling off the map? I'm gonna have to find a fix for this. But you can see now everything works. So we have everything working here. Of course, when I get hurt, then I lose health. So the interesting thing about this is that, okay, let me just replay this and hope that the error doesn't reoccur again. Not everything works, and the interesting thing is, right, if you go to a couple of things you can do with this new UI system right here. I can go to UI health, for example, right, and then set health per unit to 2. And what this will do is this will completely change the way the health is displayed. Because now if health per unit is 2, then I basically have 5 health, right? So then whenever I get hit, I lose half a health. So you can get very interesting kinds of UI displays with this new health UI system. And of course, if you have extra health, how do you test the extra health? You test it by just assigning extra health to your player character. So over here, if I set excess health of 5 and I run this, this is gonna give me 2.5 excess blue hearts as well. And then whenever I have blue hearts, I'm gonna lose the blue hearts first before I lose the red heart. Alright, so much more versatile. The other thing you'll realize, right, is that even with this new system, the UI isn't really always 100% adaptive. Let me show you what I mean, alright? So in certain screen sizes, it's still not gonna look nice. I'm just gonna revert this back to the old 1 heart per health thing. So I'm gonna go back to health UI here. Health unit is 1. And let me just not have so many excess hearts as well. So excess health, let's set this back to 0. So the other thing that you will find is that this system, even with this new UI system, even if the hearts don't go out of the screen, they kind of scale odd at certain screen sizes, right? So it may not look very good at certain screen sizes. And one thing that you can do to ensure that this works for all screen sizes is to go to your canvas and ensure that your canvas scaler is set. So here I have it set to scale with screen size, and if I just set this, for example, to 1280.720, this whole thing starts looking a lot better regardless of the screen size. Okay, so this is one thing that you can play around with. The other thing that you can do as well is to go to your build settings of your game, and then under the resolution and presentation section, right, you are actually able to set supported aspect ratios. So for example, if you want always a certain ratio, because your UI will look best at certain ratios. So if you were to define your resolution and presentation and say that you only support 16:10 and 16:9 ratios, this will make your game a lot more consistent, because then if the display is too big or too small, then it just gets rescaled to the correct size. So then when you test your game in the game view as well, you can always make sure the aspect is 16:10 or 16:9 to ensure an optimal experience for your game. And that's really all about it. That's really all I have for part 13. I'm gonna test the build a little bit more and make sure that everything works before I release the video. So we're gonna be editing this stream video over here to release part 13 of the series. The next part after part 13 is out, the next thing we're gonna jump into are pickups, because the pickup system has room for more optimization, and that's the next thing that I'm gonna focus on for the next part. So that is all for part 13. I thank you for tuning in, and thanks to all the Patreon support that we have so far as well. Really appreciate all the support that you have given. So that's the end of the stream. Thank you very much. Next week I'll go back to doing regular streaming where we will have chat and everything.